Overreaction Tuesday coming at you here from Mitchell Renz, host of the Raiders Report, after yet again another embarrassing loss by the Pete Carroll-led Las Vegas Raiders. And I know this toe is Overreaction Tuesday, but I'm going to say this right now. This is not an overreaction at all. I want Pete Carroll to retire. I want Pete Carroll to step down as the Las Vegas Raiders head coach. And I don't think that that's an overreaction at all. The only thing that I'm going to talk about on today's show is why I want Pete Carroll to retire and why I think it would be smart for all of Raider Nation to want Pete Carroll to retire. And if you feel the exact same way that I do, I hope you hit that subscribe button. And I hope that you type down below, step down, Pete, because I've seen a lot of bad Raiders teams in my days. The Pete Carroll-led Raiders are worse than the Josh McDaniels Raiders. They are worse than Antonio Pierce. They are worse than the John Gruden. It's the worst Raiders team that they have put on the field since coming to Las Vegas. And I feel lost. I feel just absolutely hopeless. And it's only because I have no idea where the direction of this team is. Because if you want to talk about why I want Pete Carroll to step down, let's talk about the 2-8 Raiders here for a second. And when you look at that Monday Night Football game, that Monday Night Football game is the epitome of everything that is wrong with this Raiders team. From the moment before he even started the game to the way that the entire thing ended up finishing out. But, let's talk about how bad this team is. They fail on offense all the flipping time. They fail on defense all the flipping time. Their special teams unit has been a problem all season long. But the 2-8 Raiders, led by Pete Carroll, I mean it when I say it, is the worst Raiders team that they have put on the field in Las Vegas. And I don't even think it's that hard of a decision to be able to say. Pete, I know you have a legacy, and I know you were trying to win. The fact that you were trying to win with the team that you're putting out on the field right now, I think is the epitome of cooked. And I get it. I think you are a legendary coach, Pete. You are a legendary coach, and you're going to go down in the Hall of Fame books. But I also don't want you to ruin your legacy because of what you're doing right now for the Raiders. And to me, he looks like a 74-year-old head coach that you're sitting there going, I don't think that he should coach anymore, right? It's the same conversation that a lot of us have to have with our significant people in our family of, oh, man, grandma and grandpa are getting too old to drive. I feel like Pete Carroll's at that age right now where he's too old to drive the ship that is the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's go to the next reason here of why I want Pete Carroll to step down. And again, it's not an overreaction. Let's talk about the offensive game plan here for a second. What's even scarier is after the game, Pete Carroll said that he was actually a part of the game plan to why Geno Smith threw the ball 42 times and why the Raiders decided to run it 6 times with Genti, 2 times with Mostert. So you're telling me offensive game plan from a team was to have Geno Smith throw the ball 27 times and have our running backs run the ball 3 times at halftime? You're telling me that the game plan was for them to chuck the rock this flipping much? And I get it. Geno said, hey, man, when my back's against the wall, it's when I play my best. Geno said he wants to cut it loose. This is the epitome of what's wrong with this team. And because Geno Smith's saying that he wants to cut it loose and everything that he said all week, Pete Carroll was like, okay, Geno, I'll do whatever you want, Geno, because I really do think Pete Carroll cares more about what Geno Smith and cares more about them being right and trying to force the issue than actually what's doing right. Because, again, Pete Carroll admitted that he was a part of the game plan today. That's an absolutely asinine thing to be able to go out there and to be able to admit, because I know that the Raiders' offense struggled today. And I knew and expected the struggles to be able to have it. What do you say? Yesterday, sorry. And I know that there's a lot of issues with this team. But still, man, for you to have the offensive game plan that you guys decided to put that out there on the field, it just shows me again of all the things that are wrong with this organization. Let's go to the next thing I want to talk about here. Caleb Rogers being inactive. Like, there is a story right now that I'm going to try to get to the bottom of because I got an interesting message from somebody. I'll leave it like that. And the story is around Caleb Rogers. Apparently, he was saying that he was going to start, and apparently that rubbed some coaches the wrong way in that Raiders locker room. And I don't know if that's the reason why he was inactive. But today, the Raiders decided to make Caleb Rogers inactive. And whether you think that he was ready to play or not, to me, at this point, I just want to see our young guys play. But you got a young guy in Caleb Rogers. If that story is true where you shit on his confidence, I mean, that's an embarrassing thing, again, but it wouldn't shock me with this coaching staff because it's very similar to JPJ saying he's center, and then you decide not to make him a center. And now what if Caleb Rogers said, I'm going to start, and now you decided to humble him? I mean, I've heard that story. I already had one bad practice. That's the reason why they decided to put him on the bench. But look at that football game. Like, that football game is the perfect example of Will Putnam was awful at center. You could have done what you've been doing, keeping Jordan Meredith at center, and you could have given Caleb Rogers the time to learn as a rookie on Monday Night Football. Instead, you decided to make him inactive, and instead, you decided to just keep on rolling with the same offensive line over and over and over all game long, even though it was probably one of the worst offensive lines that we've seen the Raiders put out on tape this season, which is a tough thing to do. We got more reasons why Pete Carroll should step down, and quite frankly, why I am hoping and praying tomorrow I get a notification. I'm hoping and praying today, that I get a notification that Pete Carroll has stepped down. And if you feel the exact same way, I just want you to type please. If you watch this show today and you want Pete Carroll to step down, if you want Pete Carroll to not be the head coach of this team anymore, I just want you to type please. I actually am curious how many pleases we can get because I'm saying from the rooftop, please, 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 please. Pete Carroll, please step down. Let's go to the next reason here of why Pete should step down. Think about how easy it was for them today to move Jordan Meredith to offensive guard. Like, it was so easy for this Raiders staff. A staff, by the way, that told you earlier in the week that either Will Putnam, Alex Kappa, or, Alex Kappa, Will Putnam, or Caleb Rogers was going to start at right guard. That was their game plan going into the week. Then they decided to switch very, very quickly, and they're going to put Jordan Meredith to offensive guard, and they're going to put Will Putnam to center. They made that decision very, very quickly. That's frustrating to me, and again, why Pete Carroll should step down. When we asked earlier in this season, why can't JPJ play center? You said absolutely not, and shut that idea down as if it was a crazy thing to be able to say. And the excuse that you gave, Pete, was that you worked on it all off season long. Why is it so easy to move Meredith to offensive guard if it means Putnam at center? But when I'm asking you to put JPJ at center, it's like rocket science, and it can't be done. And you say absolutely not as if it's a absolutely insane question to ask. My problem is you made the excuse that you invested so much time in that offensive line. Then why did it change this week? Then why all of a sudden now we can put Meredith to offensive guard. And even though Will Putnam was terrible at center, you didn't make any changes there. Pete, you show every single week that you pick favorites, and it's just sad and pathetic that you pick favorites as often as what you do. And I don't know if it's your son telling you that you can't do certain things at the offensive line. I don't have a good answer for you. But you proved yet again that you pick favorites. And head coaches in the NFL should not be picking favorites as often as what this team is doing with picking favorites. Let's go to the next reason here of why why Pete Carroll should step down. Chip, yeah, F him too, man. Kyu Blu Kelly playing. I mean, you guys played Kyu Blu Kelly for 3 quarters, okay? 3 quarters. And let's be very clear. When Darian Porter has played this season, he's played much better than what Kyu Blu Kelly has played, okay? Kyu Blu Kelly played 27 snaps today, 6 targets. He gave up 6 catches, 87 yards, and 2 touchdowns. You kept putting him out there over and over and over again, and then you finally made the change to Darian Porter. Why are we still here in Week 11 of the NFL season? And why are you still playing Kyu Blu Kelly over Darian Porter? And don't hit me with the rookie's got to be able to prove it, because if there's one other thing that I should have probably put on this show of why Pete Carroll should step down, it's the embarrassment of a press conference you gave after the show, after the game. Like, excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse. And what's frustrating is for Pete Carroll, again, to be asked why you're not playing the rookies enough, and for you to say, oh, they're not showing me enough. What is a guy like Kyu Blu Kelly showing you that tells you that you should put him out there on the field? What is a guy like Devin White doing? The amount of veteran players that apparently don't need to compete for their job, but yet you're making all these rookies compete for their job and zapping their confidence. It's just there's no direction of where this team is going. I don't know what is up. I don't know what is down. And I don't blame any Raiders player on that team for wondering the exact same thing. Like, I bet you right now, if you told this Raiders coaching staff that California was east and, they were like, or no, I think if you told this Raiders coaching staff California is west, they're like, no, I think it's east. Like, they're so delusional that they're just going to believe what they want to believe. And, again, man, this is a really, really shitty situation to be in. But you know what? I have so many more reasons why I want Pete Carroll to step down as the Raiders head coach, and I'm going to tell you here in just a moment. But this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with Prize Picks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right, that never gets old. You know what does get old? Watching Pete Carroll trying to coach this Raiders team. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Prize Picks, man, I love Prize Picks. Simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least two player stats. If you get your picks right, you can cash in. Prize Picks is the best way to win cash this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't overhyped. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your takes into cash all season long on Prize Picks. Remember how earlier I said it's good to be right? I was right, and I told everyone that Ashton Genty go for the less on Prize Picks. And I'll tell you this, anymore, I'm always going to go the less on Ashton Genty rushing yards. Because as long as Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll have anything to do with it, they're going to try everything in their power to not get him the ball. And Genty, after the game, you could see frustrated, was very, I think, annoyed with what happened, said, quote, I don't call the plays. That's up to the guys upstairs. When you have the body language that you see from your star running back at who you drafted, number 6 overall, who you did absolutely nothing to put any offensive lineman, add another reason why you should have him move on. Imagine drafting a running back like Genty and not building an offensive line. It's about as dumb as not getting started with our sponsor here, Prize Picks. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS, get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS, get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Let's go to another reason here of why Pete should step down. The defensive breakdowns that happen week in and week out. The amount of times that guys are just wide open, and I get it. It's because our regime decided to sign a bunch of guys that can't cover. I love Lonnie Johnson Jr. I love the fact that he's back. He's more of a strong safety. Shouldn't be at free safety. Isaiah Paul-Mal, shocker. Again, he's a strong safety. You're playing him at free safety. Like, you're putting Kyu Blu Kelly out there. Devin White, you're asking him to cover all the time. It's just the amount of defensive breakdowns that this team has, the amount of bad cornerback play this team has, the amount of just poor defensive back play that this team has, and that's supposed to be Pete Carroll's bread and butter. Like, his bread and butter is supposed to be correcting what we're really bad at. And if that's his bread and butter, then I think it's time to throw away that bread and butter. It's moldy. It's gross. It's starting to stink a little bit, and I just don't want to see it anymore. Like, look at the numbers that you guys see up here on screen. It's just, we can't get any pressure. When we do get pressure, the guys are able to get rid of the ball quickly because we're going to play this bend and definitely break defense. This is a Raiders coaching staff that, again, I think thought that they were too smart for their own good and thought that I'm not going to have to replace talent on a defense that clearly lacks talent, and you can just see that they get exposed week in and week out. And Brian Schottenheimer, credit to him. I know the game was 33-16. Schottenheimer for the Cowboys after the game was asked about taking knees in the third quarter, essentially, or not taking knees in the third quarter, but taking knees when they could have put up more points at the end of that fourth quarter. And Schottenheimer was like, I got too much respect for Pete Carroll. And I know Pete Carroll's got a lot of respect. But I want a head coach that wants to make his legacy with the Raiders, because right now the legacy Pete Carroll's making with the Raiders, it's a laughing stock. Let's go to the next reason here of why Pete should step down. You're just not playing your young guys, Pete. You can't be 2-8. You can't be 2-7. You can't be this bad as a football team, and then you can't say like the young guys aren't doing enough to be able to get it going, because you're going to lose this locker room. And I'm just going to tell you all right now, I don't know if anyone's going to get fired today. I don't know if anyone's going to step down. I'm going to message a lot of people. Nobody, and I'll be real with you, I don't think anybody's going to get back to me after that type of game that just ended up going down. But Pete Carroll and this staff, they are losing this locker room. I'm not saying that based off of any other information besides what I've been given in the past. And you not playing young guys and you sticking with your guys over and over and over is going to be a reason why this team loses the locker room. Look at the body language. Look at what the guys are saying after the game. Look at what they're saying. You're just doing the same thing over and over again. You can't pick favorites. Let's go to the next reason why I want Pete to step down. If Pete steps down, that means Chip Kelly's gone. Like, I promise you. If Pete Carroll is gone, they're going to clean house. And I kind of at this point want them to clean house. And if you clean house, that means Chip Kelly is gone. It also means Patrick Graham is gone, which, at this point, it kind of is what it is. I think if I am willing to say, as much as I love Patrick Graham and as much as I respect Patrick Graham as a defensive coordinator, I am willing to lose Patrick Graham if it means losing Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll. And it's a pathetic thing to say out loud, but that's kind of where I'm at right now watching this football team. There's no reason why any Raiders fan should get fired up to watch the Raiders play. I love when the Raiders don't play. My favorite day of the week is whenever the Raiders don't play. My least favorite day of the week is trying to watch Pete Carroll and this Raiders team play football games. And I'm just kind of over it. But I know if Pete Carroll steps down, that means Chip Kelly's gone as well. And you know what that also means? If Pete Carroll's gone, if Chip Kelly's gone, it means Geno Smith is gone. And I'm done with the Geno Smith experiment. The Raiders are what their leaders are. Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, and Geno Smith are stubborn leaders that love to come up with excuses. You can't tell me otherwise. You cannot tell me that the identity of the 2025 Raiders is not Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, and Geno Smith. It is the epitome of what the identity of the 2025 Raiders are. And if you're telling me that I don't got to deal with Geno Smith anymore, that I don't got to deal with Chip Kelly anymore, that I don't got to deal with Pete Carroll anymore, how do I get to that sooner rather than later? Because as long as Geno and Chip are here, you're never going to win. And I think, unfortunately, as long as Pete Carroll's here, those two guys are going to be here as well. Again, maybe there's another scapegoat that's found if Pete's trying to save his job. And if Pete's trying to save his job, the scapegoat needs to be Chip Kelly. Because at this point, it's either Pete's got to go, Geno Smith can't start any more games, or you got to fire Chip Kelly. But if Geno's the starter, if Chip's trotting out there at OC, and if Pete's not going to say anything, you're going to lose this fan base more than I've ever seen this fan base be out on a Raiders team. That's hard to do. One guy that deserves some love today. Again, the Weldinator, our Week 11 Monday Night Football MVP. If it wasn't for the Weldinator, the Cowboys report would have beat us in our tailgate battle. And because of the Weldinator, I don't got to dress up as a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader. Thank the effing Lord. Weldinator, I love you, dude. Again, greatly appreciate the conversations that we've been having. You are the number one person that I've been talking about to my buddies, to my family members, my dad. Hell, dude, I think if my dad met you right now, he'd give you the biggest bear hug you could ever imagine. But Weldinator, the message you sent me the other day when you were at Disney, I think it just goes to show that this is so much more than, again, I say it all the time, so much more than a YouTube channel. But people like the Weldinator, people like Lord Cameron Abbott, people like all y'all that always show up. I love Raider Nation. I'm a Raiders fan because of Raider Nation way more than I am a fan of any other reason. Raider Nation is the only reason why anybody should even be a Raiders fan. The last and honestly, maybe the biggest reason of why Pete Carroll should step down and why I want him to step down. Does anybody believe Pete Carroll can do the right thing for the future? Does anybody have any confidence at all that Pete Carroll and this regime is going to draft the right players, is going to sign the right players, is going to trade for the right players? And I see a lot of people saying, oh, let's tank for Mendoza, let's tank for this quarterback, let's tank for that quarterback. Do you think Pete's going to draft a quarterback? Because if I've learned anything this season, it's Pete Carroll's going to stay loyal to his guys. And I think even if the Raiders had the number 1 overall pick and Mendoza was staring there right there in the eyes, I don't have the confidence in Pete Carroll to go out and draft that quarterback because of his blind loyalty to Geno Smith. And even if he did draft a quarterback, you want that quarterback learning from these guys that we have in this building right now? I don't know if I do. And that's the worst part, and that's the other scary part. Because if you're going to be Team Tank, I don't know if Pete's going to draft a QB because of what that means for Geno Smith. Pete Carroll and this regime have shown me that they're going to be loyal to their guys to their own fault. They're going to be so stubborn and just so stubborn. And it's almost hilarious how stubborn they are. And I don't want a stubborn organization. It's what the Raiders have been for a long time. And I am just at the point where the sooner the Raiders move on from Pete, the sooner Pete steps down, the sooner we are done with the Chip Kelly, Geno Smith, Pete Carroll-led Raiders, the better off we are going to be. But I mean it when I say this. I want the Raiders to be done with Pete Carroll. And I want Pete Carroll to be done with the Las Vegas Raiders. I made a promise to the nation when the Raiders fired Josh McDaniels, I would go live for 24 straight hours. I ended up going live for 26 straight hours. I promise you this. When the Raiders decide to move on from Pete, or when Pete decides to move on from the Raiders at this point, I will be live for at least 11 hours to celebrate it. I'm doing 11 hours because I know if I go live for anything longer than that, YouTube can't save it. It's why our Josh McDaniel stream is not saved. So you have I'm telling you, I will go live for 11 hours when the Raiders decide to move on from Pete or when Pete moves on from the Raiders, because at this point, I don't know how you get this shit on the track. That's how far away we are. That's how far away we are. The next time that y'all are going to see me is going to be later on today, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. Pete Carroll, I'm actually trying to say this in a nice, respectful way. Please step down. Please step down.